Good morning, and thank you very much indeed, Josue. This is indeed a very exciting conference at a very exciting time for Africa. We saw that yesterday in the opening presentations, and again today in the excellent presentations by Mark and Lulama, outlining both the tremendous opportunities and also some of the very significant challenges that are going to be addressed in a very short time. Josue already mentioned the names of the panel, but we do have one important change. Derek Sekombe was unable to travel, which gave us the very valuable opportunity to introduce some gender balance into our panel in the person of Flora Nankuni. Flora holds a PhD in agricultural economics from Penn State University and is a specialist in the area of agribusiness. She currently works in the Ministry of Agriculture in Malawi as an advisor on policy acceleration for the New Alliance. So we're delighted to welcome her to the panel. And we're especially grateful because she accepted this at very short notice and after a very difficult travel journey. So, the charge to our panel this morning is to reflect on the major forces that will shape the environment for future agricultural growth in Africa, which Mark and Lulama already unpacked for us this morning. And in addition to analyzing or further reflecting on those challenges and opportunities, I'm also going to ask our panel members to pinpoint what are the implications, what are the options for policy, for investment in the next generation of CAADP investment plans, and partnerships that are essential for CAADP to be successful, involving the private sector and civil society. It's great to see representation by the One campaign today. In terms of meeting these challenges and seizing opportunities to continue the recent phase of growth into the future. We will have approximately 30 minutes for formal questions by me to our panelists, and then another 30 minutes for you to question them, and then we will move into the coffee break. I was a bit nervous when Josue suggested that the time might have to come out of the coffee break because I didn't want to become any more unpopular than I already am. So I would like to start with Yemi Akinbamijo and the very interesting session that he led yesterday with Professor Joachim von Braun on the whole issue of challenges, meeting the challenge of productivity growth. Josue mentioned the Malabo commitment to doubling total factor productivity growth in agriculture in 10 years. And we see that productivity has indeed ticked up very slightly, I would say, in recent years, but nowhere near where it needs to be. At the same time, we do know that there is significant land degradation because of the concentration of smallholder farmers in relatively small areas. And we, at the same time, not only do we have land degradation, but we also, as Mark said, we have the challenge of climate change. So we have these twin challenges of land degradation and climate change. Is it real? Do we really have the tools? Is Africa equipped to meet the challenge of sustainable intensification that Kwesi mentioned yesterday?
Okay, thank you, Duncan, and a very good morning to you all. It's indeed a very interesting subject, but it comes across to me as a form of an oxymoron each time we talk about the problem of feeding Africans in Africa. Why is it so? I was in another discussion yesterday at the Sheraton Hotel, and I made a statement that indeed Africa is a land of endless opportunities. But harnessing these opportunities for the benefit of our continent is the bane of the African population. And I think for the greater part of my own professional career, attempting to crack this problem has been what we've been running after. Now, we are at a critical point in time. Everybody is talking about a world that is free of hunger. I've read it in the posters just outside here on the IFPRI posters. The Paris slogan is a world free of hunger. But what that says to me is that to keep this world free of hunger, 80% of the efforts has to be focused in Africa. And to take that one step further, when we discuss hunger and food insecurity and poverty and so on a global scale, what it means is that Africa is both a problem on one hand and a solution on the other. And if we look at the political landscape at the moment, I think there is a very good convergence of events, convergence of policy instruments, convergence of goodwill, because in a fortnight from now, in New York, they're going to launch the SDGs. The SDGs, they align with what Joshua and many people have been talking about this morning about the Africa we want, the Agenda 2063, is aligned with Malabo Declaration, is aligned with the science agenda. So at the moment, we have a very good convergence of factors that can help us, to deal with the current situation. But yes, as I also said in another discussion a short while ago, we need to have all the pieces. It's just like you have a jigsaw puzzle, and until the last piece comes on the table, you don't get a complete you don't get the big picture, you don't get the full picture. So for me, I think that we're just approaching a time where we need to bring together all these forces to converge at the same time, because what has happened in the past is a staggered intervention that has really resulted in piecemeal successes here and there. But if we must move beyond this, if we must go over this hunch, we've got to be much more strategic, we've got to be much more tactical to ensure that we're able to deal with this whole problem headlong. What are the lessons that are coming from the FARA's table? Let me just say one word about FARA. FARA is the apex institution on the continent that is responsible for coordinating science in agriculture. And of recent, we have just received the mandate of the heads of state when they endorsed the science agenda for agriculture in Africa. And this same agenda has been launched a few months back in Johannesburg, because we recognize the fact that without science, we can forget about overcoming hunger. No country has done it, and no continent has done it, and Africa cannot expect to be an exception. We must, of necessity, embrace science if we take food security very seriously. Now, FARA has been leading this whole discussion on ensuring that we embrace science, science that can be applied by the smallholder farmers, science that can help leapfrog the productivity. Joshua mentioned about the cardinal goal of doubling total factor productivity just 10 years down the line. This will remain a mirage unless we are able to demonstrate the impact of science. We cannot and we will not double the productivity without science. So the science agenda is a very crucial element in the whole gamut, and we must do everything we can to ensure that this agenda becomes domesticated across the member states. Another issue that FARA as an institution has brought onto the table has been the game changer, what we call the innovation platform, which in itself is a different way of dealing with the transfer of agricultural technologies and innovations from the researchers going through the chains to the consumer. We now have, rather than having a linear approach, the innovation platform approach allows a web kind of approach that allows for a shorter interaction time between the generation of science and science products and those who will eventually use it. Now, across this continent, within the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, that we have raised not less than 300 innovation platforms, and this innovation platform has undergone a rigorous analysis, and we've published this, what we call the proof of concept of the innovation agricultural research for development. And what this has really shown us is that it is a very, very sure way to lift millions out of poverty. We've seen household incomes going up 6-fold. And this is now something that FARA has put into the hands of the member states. I don't have all the time, but I think the last thing I will talk about is what we call the UniBrain. It's a convergence of universities, business, and research institutions converging on how to optimize innovation in our production systems. And we're piloting this in a number of countries on the continent, and the results we're receiving is tremendous. And we have done some analysis that shows us that we are actually able to generate close to 25 million jobs over the next 5 years using the UniBrain approach, and it's very, very youth-friendly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yemi, for highlighting so eloquently the critical role that science is going to be called upon to play in meeting the goals of the Malabo Declaration.